Thank you so much, Josh. My name is Blessing. I'm from the University of Pretoria, and today, in this paper, we'll try to evaluate the costs, the economic costs of load shedding from 2008 to 2023. Previous work on evaluating these costs has been mostly associational, correlational, and hasn't paid much attention into kind of getting a counterfactual to compare South Africa to. And causal work that has been done on this subject has been able to get counterfactuals to compare this to, but it's not specifically focused on GDP. And we focus on the economic impacts of load shedding on GDP. And we tried to make a synthetic version of South Africa using the synthetic control method to form a credible counterfactual. And we find average effects of around 1.3% on GDP, real GDP per capita annually. And if we add up all of these, they add up to 23% of real GDP per capita lost. And while we know this is load shedding, we're not exactly sure if this is load shedding alone or this is load shedding plus something else. And yeah, so we focus on the sample between 2008 and 2023. We tried to look at 2014, but the data points us back to 2008. There seems to be something special that started there. And other considerations, we add variables that account for example, domestic credit extended to the private sector for the financial crisis. For COVID-19, we add life expectancy at birth, and also institutional differences such as rule of law. We try to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples with our counterfactual, South Africa. We use two approaches not for the analysis itself, but to select donor countries. We have a discretionary approach where we select countries based on how similar they are, GNI, that's approach B, GNI, economic complexity, and then we have a more structured approach where we use the World Bank Enterprise Survey, which has the percentage of firms experiencing power outages. Although it's sparsely collected, it helps us figure out who experiences the least amount of outages in their country, and then we get to select the 20 countries with the least power outages experienced. And we also use the income classifications from the World Bank to zero in on countries that are close enough to South Africa as possible. And we have these final set of donor countries. We remove any countries that are kind of outliers or uncomparable to South Africa in our opinion. We have other approaches as well, and we can talk about those later, such as looking at the top coal producers, the top 20, and making the counterfactual out of those, and then the G19. Some are more successful than others. We look at the variables you'd most expect to matter for GDP per capita, real GDP per capita, and we look at these as a percentage of GDP. And our outcome variable is basically real GDP per capita. Yeah, we have, so when it comes to variables that we use as predictors, we took three different approaches, two of which Abadi has used in his paper before. So we have a baseline set of variables, for example, exports, imports. These vary a bit. And then we have specific variables that we think try to send out a message as to what matters or what they're trying to capture in terms of comparing the counterfactual to the treated unit. One is more emerging market focused. In the 2015 paper, these were used to value the economic cost of German reunification. So that's the emerging market, a market emerging out of a difficult position. Economic complexity, used it in a case where you have the Basque country adjusting to terrorist shocks, and then it's comparing different regions around, and these are different types of complexity. So, and then we have our own, which is the resource driven, and this includes variables such as natural resource rents that we think matter to South Africa. We also add GDP per capita as a covariate because it captures some of the unobserved variation that we couldn't maybe capture in the estimation. Here's our baseline results. The black line is basically South Africa's real GDP per capita, and the dotted line is the synthetic version. We have good pre-treatment fit and before the treatment starts, and then afterwards you can see the treatment effect as the gap between the two lines. And we do a few placebo tests on this baseline. And the whole idea here is that since South Africa experienced the real shock, it should be one of the lowest lines on these plots. We do have countries like Brazil that are a bit lower than South Africa, but South Africa experienced load shedding in its actual state, and us applying the treatment artificially to each of these cannot compare to South Africa. And this is significant at the 5% level. We do this for a variety of the specifications, and you can see the pre-treatment fit is strong, and we kind of maintain similar gaps, although they vary a bit. And when we take the treatment effect and we compare it to the load shedding shock, we can see when load shedding gets in for the first time, the treatment effect goes down, and then we have a recovery. Then when the shock hits again, we go back down. And then when load shedding, as it tries to recover, when load shedding picks up, we go down and never come back. And then, so we take the generation, the year-on-year changes in generation, which is, excuse me, there's too many lines, but the thickest line is basically the year-on-year change in generation, and we try to compare this to the treatment effect, and you can see a trend as it goes up. Sometimes it looks like the year-on-year changes in generation lead the treatment effect, and sometimes they lag it, and then when we have complete collapse, they follow each other, and then they go back up. And yeah, that's what we do. We find a 1.3% effect, negative effect, and approximately 23%. And we know it's load shedding, but we're not sure if this is load shedding alone, if there's something else, maybe something bigger that started in 2008. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Blessings. This is a very important question. Of course, 2023 is when the severest year of load shedding. I think we heard earlier we lost a third of all, I don't know what was the exact, a month at least of load shedding for the average. In 2024 we had almost no load shedding, and yet the GDP per capita figure is exactly the same. So how would you explain that? How would we think of the counterfactual then?
Our data goes up until 2023. 2024, I don't know. I would need more data I'm not too sure. That's a good question. Maybe we can chat about it more after.
Thanks, Blessing. I mean, I can see that you're hinting at it when you say there might be other factors, because, I mean, for the people who, like the non-South Africans in the room, 2008 financial crisis affected South Africa a lot. It was the end of the commodity boom. That's probably why you have Brazil down there at the bottom. And then you also had a big political change in 2009. And so I think if you can, making some argument, I assume that's why you've got this kind of resource-dependent group as well, to try and get around the commodity boom stuff. But if you could try and make some closer argument about linking, I mean, the one thing is those correlations you have here about generation, I think that gets you some of the way. Of course, it's a problem because generation is very endogenous to economic activity, right? One thing, there's an instrument which I don't think anybody's used, which maybe you want to think about, which is that the power stations in South Africa perform much worse when it's very hot in Mpumalanga, because they're coal-fired power stations, and that predicts outages very, very well. So there's a seasonal issue there, so it's not perfect kind of random thing, but you might want to think about that a bit. But otherwise, I think that's the part of the paper that I would really try to that linkage between generational load shedding and your outcomes, because I think it's actually quite well known that South Africa did quite badly after 2008. The question is why.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thanks, Blessings. So this is maybe a bit of an unfair question, but suppose you can do what Josh was saying, and you can kind of nail this is the percent decline that came from load shedding. What do we do with that? Like, how is it, if we think about from a policy perspective, like, is that telling us something that is useful for informing policy going forward? Maybe you guys have thought about this, or if not, it might be useful to think a little bit about that as you frame the paper as well. Because I think, we all kind of agree load shedding's bad. So if you can put a number on it, that's fine, but then what, for what is that number relevant?
And that's a that's a very important comment. From I can imagine the number matters for a lot of model assumptions for forecasters, especially the macro side of the macro forecasters. We need to use the number for growth, forecasting, and whatnot. But I think we haven't spent much time actually justifying why this matters. We've spent more time just getting as much of the right number as we think we can get. It won't be exactly right, but at least following procedures that kind of.
Thanks for the paper. Just a related comment. We often get discussions going on why the value added by the electricity industry is negative, even though there isn't load shedding. And I mean, you can talk about energy efficiencies and things like that, but primarily in South Africa, we think it comes down to two factors. The first is own generation, that has increased a lot over the last few years. And the second one is many of the power-hungry users, such as the smelters, are no longer in existence. So you don't necessarily see that direct impact on the value add. Thanks.
Thank you for the comment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.